Today's lesson is on more factoring, but actually we're going to solve for x. And what this does, and I'll show you why we're solving for x, what this does is it allows us to find the actual x-intercepts or roots or solutions or, what was the last one, zeros. Remember doing this several months ago. We did the graphs of factored form, standard form, and vertex form. And these are where the parabola crossed the x-axis. Well, that's what we're going to do today with this solving by factoring. Now, this doesn't look like your notes, which is no big deal because I just added a few. We'll just do those. The ones that are on your sheet. Now, what I'm going to do is have you pause this and do the factoring, and then we will check. So you can go through this quickly. The first one is a GCF, and you get 3 times x squared plus 6. The next one is also a GCF, so you get that. This one is a factor by grouping, GCF. I believe this is the next one. This is number 4. And we have to put it in standard form first. These are all review. A is not 1. So we're going to take A times C. Got to add up to B. That's 6 times 1. So it's going to split into 6x plus 1x. Again, this is all review. I encourage you to do these on your own and then check them. Come back and check and make sure you did it right. I think that's x plus 2, and then 2 divided by 2 is 1. So that's going to be 3x plus 1 and x plus 2. Number 5 is this one, and this is also a split the middle term. So it's going to be 10 and negative 7. I believe that's going to be negative 5 and negative 2. Yep. And I'm going to split it up negative 2x, negative 5x. So they match up with their respective. I'm going to take 2x out of that. And it's going to be x minus 1. X minus 1. Divide 5 by negative 1. Negative 5. So that's our result. So that's 4. This is 5. And then 6 is the difference of squares. So 6x plus 7, 6x minus 7. Okay, so here's where we're really going for the lesson today. The zero product property. What this means is this. If you think about what we did earlier with factored form, we're going to set these equal to 0 and solve for x. By doing this, we find the solution or the 0 or the root or the x-intercept of our parabola or whatever shape it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to set each part, each factor equal to 0. Because the only way to get 0 in a product is to have at least one of those be 0, at least one. So I'm going to add p to both sides, and x equals p. Add q to both sides, x equals q. So that is what we call the zero product property. So on number 1, all we do is simply set it each part equal to 0 and solve. Add 3, you get 3. Subtract 4, and again, I tell my students that if you don't need to show all of this work, by all means, do not. If you can just look at the problem and know what the answer is, the x is, then do it, okay? Now this has 3 factors, so we got to set each of these equal to 0, okay? So, hey, there's one answer, x equals 0. That's going to be negative 2, right? Because we're going to subtract 2. This one we would add 3 and divide by 5, so 3/5. And I encourage you to do these on your own first, then check your answers with the video. Okay, so x is 0 again. Now on this one, we would add 8 and divide by 3. Again, show your work if you don't want to go, if you don't like this. Now this one, I'm probably going to show my work because it's negative x equals negative 7. So we're going to divide by negative 1 and get positive 7. Okay, now how are we going to use this? We are going to use this to solve quadratic equations. And there's 6 of them here. And what we need to do in all cases is set them equal to 0. So on number 1, we have got to subtract 2 in order to have the equation equal 0. Now I'm going to do it the exact same way I did previously. A times C, gotta add up to B. So it's exactly the same process. The only thing we add is that 0 product property. We set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. So to factor this, let's see, what would that be? Negative 6 and 1. Yep. So we're going to split this to minus 6x plus 1x minus 2 equals 0. Factor out of 3x. We're left with x minus 2 and x minus 2. Going to divide those, you get plus 1. So we get x minus 2 times 3x plus 1 equals 0. Now, we're going to take each part and set them equal to 0. Here we would add 2, so that's x equal 2. Here we would minus 1 and divide by 3. So it's negative 1/3, and we're going to leave it in fraction form. Okay? So we just found this. So here's our parabola. Here's one x-intercept. Here's the other one. See what we found? That should look familiar. We just found the zeros, or the roots, or the solutions, or the x-intercepts. Next one looks to me like a difference of squares, isn't it? So 5x plus 4, 5x minus 4 equals 0. And we're going to set each of those equal to 0. So we're just doing all the other things we already know how to do. I'm going to subtract 4, divide by 5. Add 4, divide by 5. And our x-intercepts are 4/5 and negative 4/5. So this is 1 and this is negative 1. So 4/5 and negative 4/5 are right there. Now I don't know where the vertex is of my parabola, but I do know that they're going to intersect at negative 4/5 and positive 4/5. Very cool, in my opinion. Okay, again, on all of these, we have to put them in standard form and write them in, and set them equal to 0. So I have to add 16x squared to both sides to get 16x squared plus 40x plus 25 equals 0. Now this looks like a really difficult one. It's not too bad. 16 times 25 is 400, and we got to add up to 40. And if you said 20 times 20 and 20 plus 20, you would be correct. So that's going to be 20x plus 20x plus 25 equals 0. Split the middle term. So we're going to take out 4x and 4x. And when we do that, we get 4x plus 5. We immediately write it again, equals 0, of course. Divide these last two, well, that's plus, well, what do you know? It's 4x plus 5 times 4x plus 5 equals 0. So we only have to solve for one of these because they're the same. So negative 5/4. So what does that mean? So 4x plus 5 equals 0. By the way, that's where I got negative 5/4. So subtract 5, divide by 4. Okay. Now what's this mean? Well, that just means that the parabola still opens up and that it only goes through one place and bounces off at negative 5/4, which is about negative 1.2. Again, leave them in fractional form. Okay, the next one is really bad because we have a negative x squared. But if we added it to the other side, hey, it would become positive. And if we can add 9, and then we could subtract 6x. Because remember, it has to equal 0. Now I'm going to rewrite this in order. Hey, there you go. Now that looks like something we can factor. Double bubble. I think it's minus minus 3 and 3. Again, we only have one answer. X equals 3. So you said x minus 3 equals 0, and so obviously it's x equal 3. Now on 5 and 6, those are function notation. All that means is it probably is a formula. So I'm just going to set it equal to 0 and solve. So that'd be t, let's see, plus minus, right? 5 and 3, I believe. So now t plus 3 equals 0, t minus 5 equals 0. So t is going to be negative 3 and positive 5. Again, the parabola would go through those 2 points. Looks like 6 is another one of these. 12 and negative 8, I believe that's negative 6 and negative 2. So we're going to split the middle term. Set it equal to 0. I think 2x comes out of there. Left with 2x minus 3. Then we're going to divide these two. Minus 1. So 2x minus 3, 2x minus 1 equals 0. Now we're going to set each of these equal to 0 and solve. So that would be plus 1, right, divided by 2, 1/2. This would be plus 3 divided by 2, which would be 3/2. And we're done. Now, to summarize then, what's the difference between factoring and solve by factoring? Well, the solving by factoring means we have to use the zero product property and set each factor equal to 0 and solve.